The AK-46, the unsung hero behind the AK-47 legend. Picture this. It's the summer of 1947, and you're standing on a dusty test range in Kovrov, Soviet Union. The air is thick with gunpowder, the ground shakes with every shot, and something bigger than just another gun is being born. This is where ideas, ambition, and raw determination collide with the harsh reality of trials. Right here, in this chaos, the AK-46 comes to life. A prototype that never stole the spotlight but made the AK-47 possible. The AK-46 isn't just a firearm. It's a story of trial and error, compromise, and relentless pursuit of perfection. It's about people whose names have faded but whose ideas changed the world. It's the tale of how a war-torn nation dreamed up a weapon that would become a global icon. Let's dive into how it all started, why the AK-46 stayed in the shadows, and how it set the stage for the most famous rifle ever made. To get why the AK-46 was born, we need to rewind to 1946. World War II had just ended, leaving the world in shambles. The Soviet Union, despite its victory, was battered, cities in ruins, economy on its knees, millions lost. But the Cold War was already looming, and the Soviets knew they needed cutting-edge weapons to stay ahead. Their army demanded a rifle that could handle anything: mud, snow, sand, scorching heat, or freezing cold. The challenge was to build a rifle for a new cartridge, the 7.62 by 41 millimeters, later tweaked to the famous 7.62 by 39 millimeters. This round was a game-changer, powerful enough to punch through cover, but light enough for soldiers to carry more ammo. It was designed for automatic weapons to replace outdated bolt-action Mosin-Nagant rifles and submachine guns like the PPSH-41. The question was, who could design a rifle that combined reliability, simplicity, and firepower? The Soviet government launched a nationwide competition. Top engineers and inventors jumped in. Big names like Bulkin, Demeniev, Korobov, and Rukavishnikov. And then there was one guy nobody had heard of, Mikhail Kalashnikov. Who was Mikhail Kalashnikov? In 1946, Mikhail Kalashnikov wasn't the legend we know today. He was just a 27-year-old tank commander, wounded in battle, with no formal engineering degree but a burning passion to invent. His story began during the war, lying in a hospital bed, listening to soldiers gripe about unreliable guns. Those complaints lit a fire in him. He wanted to build a rifle that wouldn't fail in combat. Kalashnikov was a self-taught tinkerer with a knack for seeing mechanisms as living systems. His early designs, a submachine gun and a carbine, didn't make it to production but caught enough attention to earn him a shot at the big contest. Under the code name Miktim, a jumble of his first and middle names, he submitted his blueprints to Kovrov. That's where the journey to change the world began. The AK-46 wasn't one rifle. It was a trio of prototypes, each with its own vision. Kalashnikov, teamed up with engineers Alexei Zaitsev and Vladimir Solovyov, built 3 models: AK-46 number 1, number 2, and number 3. Each was an attempt to answer the ultimate question: what makes the perfect rifle? AK-46 number 1, old school meets innovation. The first model was the most traditional. It had a milled receiver, a wooden stock, and a familiar layout. Nothing too wild at first glance. But dig deeper, and you'd find bold ideas. The AK-46 number 1 used a short-stroke gas piston system, where the piston and bolt carrier were separate, linked by a spring-loaded rod. This setup was inspired by the German STG-44, a rifle that influenced designers worldwide. The short-stroke system promised high rates of fire and less recoil. But there was a catch. It needed precision manufacturing and was prone to jamming in dirty conditions. One cool feature was the open-top receiver, which let soldiers load the rifle with stripper clips, like a Mosin-Nagant, without removing the magazine. In 1946, that was a rare trick. Most automatic rifles relied solely on magazines. Another smart touch was the bolt hold-open device, which locked the bolt back when the magazine was empty. That's standard now, but back then, it was ahead of its time. Kalashnikov also tackled recoil with a clever muzzle device. The barrel had 6 holes, 3 on each side, acting as a basic muzzle brake compensator to reduce muzzle climb during full auto fire. It was a risky experiment, but it showed Kalashnikov cared about the soldier's experience, not just the gun's function. AK-46 Number 2, built for the factory floor. If Number 1 was a lab experiment, Number 2 was all about real-world practicality, designed for mass production. Its big innovation was a stamped receiver instead of a milled one. Milling was slow and expensive. Stamping cut costs and sped up production. This was a direct response to the Soviet Union's post-war economic crunch, where every penny counted. The receiver design echoed the STG-44, but with Soviet tweaks. It had stamped guides for the bolt and carrier, and the magazine well was welded on for extra rigidity. The charging handle was fixed, only engaging the carrier during reloads, which reduced vibrations. A dust cover sealed the receiver slot, keeping out dirt and sand. A simple but effective fix. The magazine, borrowed from the Sudyev as 44, held 30 rounds and was battle-tested. But Kalashnikov was already thinking ahead, planning a tougher magazine that could take more abuse. The third model was the wild card. Its standout feature? A folding metal stock that tucked under the receiver. Inspired by German MP-38-40 submachine guns, it was tailored for Soviet needs. The folding stock made the rifle compact, perfect for paratroopers, tank crews, or anyone fighting in tight spaces. The stock was metal with textured grips, built to withstand impacts and extreme temperatures. Unlike some Western designs, it didn't wobble or bend. This was the first step towards specialized rifles for different troops, an idea that later bloomed into models like the AKS and AK-74. Summer 1947 was make-or-break time for the AK-46. The Kovrov range hosted the best rifles in the competition. The AK-46 held its own, outshining rivals in accuracy, durability, and ease of use. But it had a fatal flaw: reliability. The short-stroke gas system, despite its zippy fire rate, up to 855 rounds per minute for Number 2 and Number 3, choked in dust and heat. In simulated combat conditions, it started to fail. This was a do-or-die moment. Kalashnikov knew his rifle was close to greatness, but not there yet. Enter Alexei Zaitsev, an engineer whose name rarely makes the headlines, but whose idea changed everything. He suggested a drastic overhaul: merge the gas piston and bolt carrier into one unit, switching to a long-stroke gas system. This wasn't a new concept. It was used in Semenov's rifles and some American designs. But for the AK-46, it was a game-changer. The long-stroke system added weight, which could affect accuracy, but it was far more reliable. It shrugged off dirt, heat, and misfed rounds. Kalashnikov hesitated. With only weeks until the next trials, a redesign seemed impossible. But Zaitsev pushed, and the team went all in. By late 1947, a new rifle, dubbed the AK-47, was ready. It kept the AK-40SIXS look, layout, magazine, sights, but its guts were completely re-engineered. That overhaul made the AK-47 the contest champion. To grasp why the AK-46 and its successor, the AK-47, mattered so much, let's zoom out to the economic landscape of the late 1940s. The Soviet Union was in rough shape. Historians estimate its GDP in 1945 was just 60% of pre-war levels. Factories were wrecked, resources scarce, and the military needed a massive upgrade. Designing a new rifle wasn't just a military goal, it was an economic one. Milled parts, like those in AK-46 Number 1, were too costly for mass production. The stamped receiver in Number 2 was a direct answer to that problem. Analysts say switching to stamping slashed production costs by 30 to 40%. This let the Soviets arm millions without breaking the bank. The AK-47, built on the AK-40SIXS foundation, was an economic marvel. Its dirt-cheap production made it a global phenomenon. As of 2025, over 100 million AKs and variants have been made worldwide. It's not just a weapon, it's a cultural icon, synonymous with reliability and affordability. The global arms race. How the AK stacked up. The late 1940s sparked an arms race. The US was developing the M14. Belgium had the FNFEL, and Germany was cooking up new designs. But none matched the AK-47's blend of cost, toughness, and simplicity. The M14 cost 2 to 3 times more to produce, and the FNFEL needed more maintenance. By the 1960s, AK-47s and their copies dominated roughly 50% of the global small arms market, per industry reports. The Soviets exported AKs to allies from Cuba to Vietnam, boosting their geopolitical clout. It was a military and economic slam dunk. The AK-46 could have been a star, but it stayed a footnote. Why? It was a stepping stone. Its innovations, stamped receivers, folding stocks, muzzle compensators, were brilliant, but the short-stroke system didn't cut it. In war, reliability trumps speed, and simplicity beats finesse. Still, the AK-46 was the crucible for the AK-47. Without its 3 prototypes, without the mistakes and debates, without Kalashnikov and Zaitsev's clashes, the AK-47 wouldn't exist. The AK-46 is like the rough draft of a classic novel, never published but essential to the masterpiece. Chapter 6. What the AK-46 teaches us today. The AK-46's story is a lesson in how breakthroughs come from grinding through failures. Kalashnikov's team wasn't afraid to experiment, even when things flopped. They learned from every misstep, and that led to a rifle that outlasted empires. In 2025, we're in a world of lightning-fast tech. But the AK-46's principles, simplicity, reliability, accessibility, still resonate. Whether it's a gun, a gadget, or an app, those qualities win hearts and minds. The AK-46 reminds us that greatness isn't born perfect, it's forged through persistence. The AK-46 isn't just a prototype, it's a testament to human ingenuity, the courage to fail, and the drive to keep going. Without it, there'd be no AK-47. Without the AK-47, countless battles, wars, and histories would have played out differently. This is the story of how a small spark on a dusty range ignited a legend. Hey folks, if you love this deep dive, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think of the AK-46, the AK-47, or what other stories you want to hear. Let's keep exploring the world of weapons and innovation together. Your support fuels these tales. Catch you in the next one.